Hi, I'm Shristi. In this video, I want to take an existing MeanStack app and move it across into a Meteor app. And I want to get a bit of a feel for the types of things that I can keep and reuse, and what kind of things I actually would have to change along the way. I'm going to focus primarily on the front end, on the Angular side of things, and just kind of see how it goes. So here is the app that I've currently got. Modules, which is where I've got core and users, and under core I've got it split into client and server, and for client it's split down into the different types of things that I would normally expect in an Angular app. So I've got controllers, I've got services, I've got views, I've got CSS files, and so on and so forth. So don't worry too much if you don't already have this version of the MeanStack or the MeanJS app. If you've got any app and you're thinking about how Meteor applies, hopefully this video will just kind of help you get a bit of an idea for what kind of things you would have to do. So don't stress too much about the files, we'll focus more on the process. All right, so now I want to go and just create a new Meteor app. I'm going to create it just using WebStorm, but if you don't have WebStorm, you can just type into your command line just Meteor create, and then the name of the app that you want to create. So I'm just going to select Meteor App, going to select where I want it to go. I'm just going to call it my Meteor App. There's some templates here that you can select from too. So if you want to create your app from a particular template, WebStorm lets you do that. I'm just going to keep it with default for now and go ahead and hit create and just open that in a new window so we can see them side by side. There we go. So I've got Meteor here on the right and my Angular material demo on the left. All right, so there we go. So that's now created a Meteor app, and if I open that up, I can see that it's actually just created 3 little files in here for me, and it's also just set up that Meteor package and set up all the things that I need in order to use Meteor. So you can see already that when I'm comparing MeanJS to Meteor, I see that there's like a whole lot of kind of what I call the random files sitting in the MeanJS kind of structure. Meteor's kind of all hidden away in this Meteor folder, and basically everything that I need in my app, I can just kind of create and set up in whatever kind of format or structure I want to use, as long as Meteor can read it. We should be all good with that. So a couple of things I'm going to do. Firstly, I'm going to actually go ahead and tell Meteor about the packages that I want to use for my Meteor app. So at this point, I'm actually going to start to tell Meteor that I want to use Angular. So I've just opened up the terminal here, and I'm just going to type in Meteor and the package that I want to add. It's URIGO and then Angular. So first I'm going to add Angular, and then I'll go and add Angular material. All right, so that's going to go and install, and that has installed everything I need for Angular. Now what I'll do is also install Angular material. So I'm just going to hit the up arrow and okay, Meteor add, but I'll just type in Angular, and this is a little bit different. It's Angular dash material. So this is a very similar way to how you would normally install something using like Bower or NPM. Actually, out of interest, while these are being installed, let's have a quick look at where they're actually ending up. So there's a few files that sort of are available to us when you open up the Meteor folder. So we've got git ignore, and then packages is where we can see the packages that have actually been installed using Meteor add. So that's pretty clever. It's kind of the same way as if you were going to install something using Bower and then you had that minus save, or if you install something using NPM and you had that minus save, it is actually just added it in to the list of packages for you. So that's pretty cool. Cool. So now we have Angular. We've got Angular material. I'm also going to add in Angular UI router. So I'm just going to change this up. So this time it's Angular UI, and then it's Angular dash UI dash router, like that. So now that all of the packages are installed, I'm actually going to kind of start with a bit of a blank slate. So I'm going to get rid of these hello CSS, HTML, and JS files here, so they can basically just be deleted. Because what I want to do is move across the files within my module over to this app. Now, the reason that I've kind of removed everything here is because I want to kind of recreate this module structure, and it just makes it easier for me when I'm looking for specific types of files. So a couple of things here that I'll just kind of extend out for what Meteor is all about. So with Meteor, there are certain rules for different types of folder names, and Meteor treats the code within some of these folders in a bit of a special way. If you want more information about exactly how that works, you can obviously have a look at the Meteor Docs. I'll put a link in the post. But without stressing too much, here are kind of like the sort of 3 or 4 key things that you need to know. So firstly, if you've got something inside a directory called client, then that code that's within that directory will only be available on the browser. Similarly, if you've only got something that's inside a directory called server, then the code that's within that directory will only be available on the server. And another one to keep in mind is if there's something inside a directory called lib, so lib, then that code will run first. So that's kind of a place to start off with. Just something to kind of keep in mind as we're going through this process. So what that kind of means is I can almost replicate the structure that we've got within main.js. So this core module, for example, with its client and server directories should more or less fit into the Meteor structure. So let's have a look at that. Except I'm not going to create a separate directory called modules because I probably don't need that for this app. It's fairly small. I'm just going to go ahead and just create the modules. So I'm going to create a directory called core because that's the module I want to recreate. And then within that, what I'm going to do is actually just copy across all of the contents of this client folder over here. So basically I'm just going to just copy and come over to core and just paste it right in. So that's what it's going to be called. It's going to be called client. Cool. So now I've basically just taken everything that was in core client over here and then just put it into core client just over here. Now there's a few things that I'm going to have to do for Meteor to actually recognize what I'm trying to do here and how it's going to work. So firstly, I need somehow to tell my Angular app where and how I want it to kind of be structured. Normally we do this using like an index file, so I'll do something similar, but I'm going to try and reuse as much of the main.js stack as I can. So I'm going to go across to core, but this time I'm just going to jump into server, go down to views, and there's an index server view here, and then there's a layout server view here. I'm just going to have a look at layout. And in layout, you kind of see the structure that you would of a normal kind of app that you'd created for the web. You've got sort of your head tags, HTML tags, body tags, and so on and so forth. Now, with Meteor, it has kind of a special way for how it seems to take and extract out the different types of tags that you're likely to use and likely to need. So what I'm going to do is more or less copy the contents of this index file into a HTML file in my Meteor app. So I'm just going to grab everything from the head tag down to the body tag. I'm going to leave the HTML tags as they are. And I'm just going to come over here and just open up that client directory, and within that I'm just going to add a new HTML file and just call it index, and there we go. So I've got now an index.html file. Get rid of what's in there and then just paste in the contents of the layouts overview. So it shouldn't be too different to you if you're familiar with Meteorjs. But I'm going to take a few of these things out. I don't really need everything that's in here. So I'll just start from the top. I can change up the title. Meteor's not going to recognize the double curlies at this point in time, so I'll just change that up to my Meteor app. Let's scroll down a bit. I can probably get rid of all of these things here and scroll down a little bit more and just clean up the file a little bit. Okay, so here I've got this block content. I don't need that anymore. I'm just going to go back to index overview and just copy that contents there. So this is what I'm going to use for my routing. So this is my top level UI view. If you're familiar with Angular, if you're not, that's okay. And I can probably get rid of most of these scripts as well and just leave it at probably something like that will probably do for me at the moment. And I'll just refer, there's a data entity include here, and it's currently referring to modules. I don't want to refer to modules anymore. I just need it to refer to this header client view here. So I'm just going to copy a reference to that and paste it in there. I don't have a leading / on that, so I'll just leave that like that. Okay, cool. Now in the same way that I just sort of changed up the header client view reference, there's probably a few other references within the contents of these folders that I'll have to go through and change up. There's a few other things that I'm going to have to think about too. Firstly, I need to bootstrap Angular. I need Angular to kind of load first before the rest of the code here, and then I also need this particular module, the core module, to be available as soon as the Angular app is bootstrapped and loaded. So step 1 is start up the Angular app, step 2 is load the core module, and then step 3 is kind of bring in all the files that kind of need to be available after that point. But I'll also have to clean up the references, as I mentioned before, and I may have to do a couple other things too. So I'm going to start with the first step. So firstly, I want to load Angular. So currently, most of that sits under this app area here. So I've got a config file, which kind of contains the name of the module, the dependencies that I want to use. I'll have to come back and change up these dependencies because many of those aren't available in this Meteor app. I haven't added them in, so I just want to keep it bare bones. And then there's this init kind of file here, which is used to kind of bootstrap Angular. So that just means that we're kind of manually loading Angular for this particular app. Okay, cool. So let's start with this. We want these two files to kind of load first. So to do that, I can call this folder live. So I'm just going to rename it to, instead of app, just call it lib, just like that. I've got this core client module file here, and this is being used to register this core module, and that needs to happen as soon as the Angular app is initialized. So what I'll need to do is probably just move this from here into live. Yep, I can move there, but I kind of need it to load after this init file, right? So first I want to identify all the dependencies and the module name, then I want to pass that through to init and kind of bootstrap Angular, and then I want to actually register this particular module. So to do that, Meteor actually firstly looks at the live file to load those files first, but it also works in alphabetical order. So I'll need to change that up. To do that, I'm just going to give it a slightly different name, just something that's going to, maybe I'll just call it module.core just something that makes it just appear after the init. So that will do like that. So now we've got an order of events. I'm just going to close all these things here. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is just rename these HTML files so that Meteor knows that they're actually being used or they contain Angular tags or Angular double braces, those kind of things. So that's pretty much as easy as just going through renaming from view.html. What I'll do is I'll just get rid of the view and just change it to ng. So it's just .ng.html. So I'll refactor these. So .ng. Again, just .ng. So I'll get rid of the view. Okay, cool. And just do a refactor there. Okay, so one other thing I'll just mention while I'm at it is that you can also have a look into ng annotate and how Angular Meteor uses kind of a way to restructure your dependency injection for ng annotate using ng.js. So what that means is, in a similar way to how we have changed this to ng.html, you can actually go through and change up your controllers and other things to ng.js. And to do that, you can actually then change up the way the dependency injection works. So you don't have to have, for example, scope here twice or HTTP twice. It's a little bit of a different structure, but I'll let you look at that separately. I won't worry about that too much here. So now that I've changed these files, I need to go through and update the references as well. So you can just have a look starting with the routes files. So just have a look in config. So I've got a few, got a few routes here. So for example, we've got home. So I'm just going to copy the reference like that. And for the contact form, copy the reference there, so that becomes like that. So I know that the header reference we changed previously, these two references we've changed now, which means that contact sheet still needs to be changed. So I'll just have a look. It's probably sitting in one of the controllers. It might be this one, I think. Cool, there it is. I'm just going to grab contact sheet and just go and change that reference there like that. Okay, so a couple of other things I'm going to have to do. I haven't updated the dependencies, so I'll just go and have a quick look at that. So in live config, so these are the dependencies that I've currently got in the app, but I actually don't have in this Meteor app. So I'm going to get rid of ng resource. Actually, I'll just rename it, because one of the things that I've added is Angular Meteor, so I'm going to have to add that as a dependency. You've got UI router. I don't have UI Bootstrap and Angular file upload, but I do have ng material. So those are the three dependencies that I'm going to be left with. So they're just the ones that are being used by this particular app. The next thing I'm going to do is just have a quick look at the services. Got a few services here. Just see if there's any additional things that are being passed through that they may not need. So let's have a look here. We've got, so they seem to be okay. I can probably get rid of HTTP. I'll leave that in there for now. Maybe I'll have a look at server. This video is running a bit long, so I might have a look at the server side in a separate video. Oh, I see authentication. I can probably get rid of that, because we don't have a users module in this particular app, so I can get rid of that there. And so I'll get home. Same deal here. So I'll just get rid of authentication and get rid of authentication here too, and that one there. Okay, just make sure everything else lines up. All right. Now, the other thing that I haven't included yet is in this particular app, when I was looking at live before, I noticed that I'm actually referring to a default icon set provider, and these are actually within this app over here in public, over in assets down here in this folder here. So what I'm going to do is just going to pull that over just as it is. So I'll add a new directory called public, and I'll just copy across the assets and paste them in here. I think I've probably got most of the things that we need to do to get this app to work. So I haven't really had to go in and hack at the code. I've really just had to make sure everything still maps together. So I have to test this out because I haven't done that yet and see how this works. So to start this up, I can just type in Meteor. And that should just go through and kind of in the same way that you'd use like grunt or gulp, it just kind of packages it all up for you. Okay, cool. So now that it's running, all right, so that's an annoying little error, but it's an important one for you to kind of keep in mind. So what it's telling me here is that application configuration is not defined. Now, this is something that sits in the config file that I've got in that live folder. So it's one of those things that's going to be loaded first as part of this app being actually run. The interesting thing with Meteor is that when you have something that's actually defined with a var, like as a variable, that thing is actually restricted to just one particular file. So if I go back to lib and I go into config, I can see here that I've got this application configuration here, and it's prefixed with a var because it's defined as a variable. But Meteor actually thinks that I only want that variable to be available locally only to this particular file, not available to this init file, which is the one that actually needs to refer to this particular reference. So to fix this error, what I need to do is just get rid of that var there, which looks a little bit odd, and to kind of get rid of it, I'm going to just comment out use strict and then just save that and see what that does for us. All right, so just open that up. Okay, pull it over here so you can see it. All right, and there we go. So there's the app, and take what I've done from the mean stack, the MeteorJS stack, ported that across to Meteor, and I can see the same app created in both. So there's a few kind of tweaks and things that we had to do, but there wasn't really any kind of hacking at the code as such. Yeah, let me know what you think. You know, what kind of things work better for you, or things that you don't quite like. I'm interested to hear everyone's opinion because I'm quite new at using Meteor myself. So that's it for now. In the next video, I actually want to have a look at a little bit of the back-end side of things. So in the current MeteorJS app, I'm using Node Mailer to send notifications that are provided through the contact form. So that's used to actually send emails. I want to use the Meteor emails package and see how that works, and if that's easier or if it's more tricky than getting Node Mailer up and running. So that's where I'm going to leave it for today. I hope that helped. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Check out bossable.com for more details, and I'll see you again soon.